Here's Troy Knowlton on this. Oh, wait, this is the wrong book. Dang it. Oh, sorry. Troy's got the good one. Ta-da! Mr. Troy Knowlton, who has amazing invisibility powers. You can drift away into your background at any given moment.
I know, right? Look at that. Let me mute you on this side.
So I actually gotta start off with this. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Troy. Happy birthday to you. Tomorrow.
An author with a singing voice. Look at that. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you. Cheers.
Here's to you. And then some.
Yep.
So not only does Troy have his birthday tomorrow, but Seekers of the Winds of Change's birthday was 2 days ago?
Yesterday, actually, the 12th.
Yeah. There we go. It was yesterday. And before we do anything and talk about anything, in celebration of the 1-year anniversary of Seekers, the Winds of Change being on the market, I believe Troy has a special offer going, don't you?
I do. I have it, the Kindle version listed as free from now all the way up until the end of Monday, 11:59 Pacific Daylight Time. So yeah, grab your copy if you haven't.
So yeah, if you are looking for your perfect opportunity to grab your copy, now is how much is it? Like 99 cents?
Yeah, it's not a whole lot anyway, but free is better than anything, really, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you
go. Oh, and Daniel's singing along at home. Isn't that nice?
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. I'm turning the big 3-0, so feeling old now.
So, oh, really? Is this you're going over the hump?
Yeah, the Dirty 30th.
Oh my gosh. Yep. That's life according to Garp, Dirty 30.
Is that where it came from?
Yeah, that was the original use of it as far as I know, John Irving. So are you do you have anything special planned for your birthday? Are you are you a blow out the doors kind of guy for a big one like this?
Oh, so special, Andy. I go into work for a graveyard 11 p.m.
Dude, what is going on with work? Like, it sounds like you've just been abused for the last 2 months.
Yeah. I started a new job, so I'm a low man on the totem pole now, getting all the the glory shifts. But it's been working out good, actually. I'm enjoying it. People there are nice, and so a change of scenery after a while. I was at my old hospital for about 6 years, and just you need a little bit of change of scenery. It's a little more lucrative at this new job, and same kind of work. And a bunch of people that I knew from my old hospital actually work at that hospital too. So it's not like I'm going in not knowing anybody. So it's been pretty nice, actually. Nice. But yeah, I get to work a graveyard on my birthday. So yay me. We're actually celebrating.
Yeah. It sounds like 30.
Yeah.
20, you're out pretending to have a driver's license that says I'm 21 on it and you're traveling around. 30, yeah, you're working the graveyard shift. So are you stuck on graveyard shift like for a while, or do you have a plan?
So we'll see what happens. I know that there's a lot of movement at that hospital, and they're also on a hiring spree. So I'm not the actual lowest person anymore. There's already 2, soon to be 3 people underneath me. So I'm not going to be stuck on the graveyard that much longer, but it is only a couple of days a week. But because I still am kind of low there, it's usually Friday night and Saturday night that I'm working. So I guess it's not too bad. Yes.
Are you working graveyard shift on the weekend and then switching over to normal shift during the week?
Oh, you know it. Night shift usually, but I pick up day shifts sometime. I'll tell you this. So I was working graveyard going into another graveyard the next night, and they actually called me asking if I wanted to work a 12-hour shift in between. So I would work I'd get off, have an hour, work a 12-hour shift, have another couple of hours, and then work the graveyard. I told them no. I told them I could do partial, but they found someone else to cover it. But yeah, just that's the amount of hours that are available at my new job. On one hand, it's great because I get to kind of write my own check in a certain way with the amount of overtime. But in another sense, it's like, oh my god, it can be pretty crazy. But yeah, it's been good.
It's like, I don't want to do this right now, please and thank you. I'd rather do anything else. And
good news is
radiology tech, right?
Yes, still a rad tech. The good news about working graves, though, at least, is that during the downtime, I get to do a little bit of writing. And for book 1, I felt like I wrote some of my best stuff by getting called into work graveyard. So, hey, there's that.
Okay, so since we're here, this is what.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I finally got the opportunity to read it. I'm glad it was good, and I'm glad that I enjoyed it, and glad I got to read it with a couple other people, having their reactions to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the end and say, what's the plan for the next book?
Ooh. So we are picking up a couple of months after the events of the first book. And we're just going to kind of see the fallout of what happened in book one and start a couple of new plot threads. And it kind of really grows from there. I don't want to divulge too much yet because I'm still kind of working the kinks out. But that's the overall gist of where book two starts. Kind of building upon what happened in the epilogue, or at least with the kind of the threads.
I don't know what you're talking about. Everything wrapped up in a tidy bow at the end of the book. There's nothing going on with the sovereigns or anything. Everything's fine.
Right, yeah, nothing suspicious at all.
One of the things that I really loved was the conspiracy theories going on during the readathon. It was just like, oh, what is this? What is this? What are they going to do? It was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun to see. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm an idiot. I'm sitting there walking along thinking everything's prima facie. And then people like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? I'm like, I never thought of that. And now I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, there's a couple, especially ones that I guess people started talking about that are kind of unresolved as of right now, that have been very interesting to see people come to those conclusions. Like some stuff maybe that I wanted them to think and some stuff that maybe I didn't want them to think. So it's just kind of fun, like saying all that. You're definitely right. The conspiracy theory is one of the most fun parts.
So that kind of comes into, okay, you've seen a bunch of reviews, you've gone through like a readathon type of thing where you got different people involved in reading it. Is there something that surprises you that people get out of it that you weren't expecting? Or when they start coming up with conspiracy theories, like is any of that surprising to you?
Yes. So I guess the main thing that hit me, if we're talking about just in terms of like reviews and stuff like that, I think we might have mentioned this a little bit when we talked last time, but
on our speed date.
Yes, exactly.
I looked for a rose, but I couldn't.
Oh, right. Yeah, I should have brought that. I should have kept that same one just in case. Oh, dirt and crap. But yeah, right. He does by now, probably. The one thing though that surprised me, I think, just in terms of like if we're talking about looking at reviews, is that I did not really. I don't know that I. Well, I guess I'll say this: I did enjoy writing the action scenes, but I just did not enjoy the process of writing the action scenes. So I was very, very fearful if the action was going to turn out well, or if it was going to feel a little bit too frantic, or maybe it was going to drag too much. I didn't know. I was kind of unsure of myself in terms of whether it was going to really hit with people. And when people started mentioning that they love the action, that I was kind of taken aback a little bit, and in a good way. I was like, oh, that's really good. I'm glad that was. Oh, hey, Derek. So I guess that was one thing. Yeah.
Do you feel like you do action sequences well now, or are you still kind of chasing it?
I don't think we're ever really arrived. So I'm sure that there's a lot that I could improve on. But it's good to know that at least I guess from most of the reviews that I've been seeing, that I've been heading in the right direction with the action. So I guess I'm a little bit more sure of myself. But at the same time, there's still the kind of that nagging thing in the back of my head. Like, am I writing this well? Like, even while I was writing book two just the other day, I finished a really big action sequence. And I was like, did this drag too long? It was most of the chapter. And, I'm like, this could either really, really hit well or it couldn't. But, we'll just have to wait and see, for the edits and proofreading stuff like that to see what they say.
So where are you in book two?
I am about a little more than 3/4 of the way through. We'll say probably 6/8 of the way through, maybe. Not just 3/4.
6/8, 3/4.
Yeah, something like that.
It's all
maybe 7/8. So somewhere around there. I'm getting into the basically book two has how many? Book two has around 4 to 5 main plot threads that it goes through, main arcs, if you will. And I'm getting into the final climactic arc. to.
Nice.
Then it's going to go to the editor, and then I kind of just, I'm at the mercy of her schedule, and then it will do all the other post, writing, pre-publication kind of stuff.
So, how's your process different this time than it was the first time around?
It's a lot slower. It's a lot
Okay.
slower, and I don't know if that's just because of trying to get instead of just throwing stuff down, like trying to get the first draft more like kind of edit ready than having to go through it a bunch of times, or if it's just because what's been going on, like just personally, like in my life, just not having as much time. I'm not sure what it is, but this has been just so much more of a, I don't want to say slog because that kind of has a negative connotation to it, but it's been kind of a slog. Like it's just taken a while to get through. But I feel like the overall product at the end, because I have the experience with book one, is turning out a little bit more polished, with the first draft. So that's, I think, the only major thing that's changed in my process. I guess just it's almost like when you are a runner and you're kind of like you start a run and you feel like just winded, but then as you start to move along in that run, you just don't even think about it. You're just pacing forward. So that's, I think, where I'm at. I'm just, I'm very slow running right
now. Is it different writing, knowing that people are kind of expecting it and have a bar that they're expecting you to meet?
Oh yeah, so I definitely keep that in mind. Like it's hard not to, at least think about the reviews and what people liked and what people didn't like, when you're going into book two. And I kind of lean into some of the things that a lot of people really, really liked that I also personally enjoyed, but I was kind of unsure of in book one because book one seemed more of just be throwing a bunch of ideas down and trying to make a nice, clear, coherent story. And now that I kind of have a little bit more of my voice as a writer, going into book two, I can just sort of take what worked and what was really I thought was really good in book one and sort of build upon that. Maybe throw a couple little wrinkles, the new wrinkles in with that, just to see how that goes.
Hey, Bex.
Hey, Bex.
So, do you have a plan for a release date, or are we just waiting?
Initially, I was hoping to get it released by the end of this year. Just with how slow going it's been, I feel like realistically for me, beginning of next year is looking a lot more like what it's going to be, maybe quarter one. I would say at the very worst, if I just like everything like falls out and the editor can't get to it in a timely manner, it might get pushed into very early quarter two. But I'm hoping for either early to mid quarter one, and like I said, late quarter one, early quarter two at the very, very worst of it. And if I could somehow miraculously just pull like 20,000 more words out of the hat, then I can maybe get it done by the end of the year. But most likely, we're looking at a 2024, early 2024.
I like how your expectations, and I guess other people's expectations, as a fledgling writer is like, okay, well, I clearly I need to turn around a second book in 18 months. Go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that ever presence. It's almost like it's looking over your shoulder at all times. Like when I'm sitting down, like relaxing, or even like just having to go at like a movie or like a video game. It's like, oh, you should be writing right now. You should be getting book two out. Why are you sitting down? But sometimes you just got to veg out.
How are you managing that?
It's in terms of just
you have to have a life and you have to have a job. And it turns out you do have people in your life that you love and you want to spend time with. So do you carve out a specific, between 6 and 8 every day I'm going to write, or on weekends or when I get called into work late shift, I'm going to write? Like, what does your pattern look like?
My pattern is kind of, there is no pattern right now, just because of the way that my new shifts at work are and how it's so all over the place. It's just kind of plug and play. Like whenever I have a few hours here or there, I'm sitting down and trying to carve out at least 1,000 words here, even small 200 word chunks there, just kind of slowly climbing up that hill. Like, and some of the days it is like either my word count's at 0 or it's at 200 or even a good 150 maybe. But other days, I can reach that 2,000 goal, or even 1,000 or 800, somewhere around there. So it's kind of all over the place. And there are quite a few days where I don't get a chance to write just because picking up extra shifts at work. Like yesterday was one of those days, but that was so I could have today and tomorrow, most of tomorrow off. So, that's kind of how it's been. But I've had a pretty good work life, home writing balance. I just I really need to power through on this book too, and I'm gonna get it done.
Power through and get it done because there's another book after that. And
Yes,
then there's
I
another
gotta do
book.
all four. Yeah.
And did you start this book knowing that it was going to be four? And did you kind of have the skeleton built out for what all four were going to look like? Or was it like, okay, let me get the first one done and we'll deal with the rest of it later?
So it's kind of interesting. So I originally went into this whole thing thinking that instead of going the self-pub route, that I would try my hand at traditional publishing.
I remember you
And
talking about that.
everything that I read, everything that I heard, every video that I saw, they all said that if you go traditional publishing and you're a first-time author and you're trying to market your book to agents, you have to write it as a standalone. You can write it as a standalone with series potential, but you have to write it as a standalone because people don't want to take on, especially publishing companies don't want to take on new series
Right.
and commit to that.
Tell us
So-
all about your 10-book series, you fledgling
Yeah,
author.
right. Yes, I just met you. Now buy my 10-book series, right?
Mhm.
No. So that's why Seekers kind of reads as like a story that wraps up in book one, but also has some threads that could be built upon later. And that's exactly what the plan was. It was not always a 4-book series, though. I was gonna try to shove everything into 3 books, but the more I thought about the middle act that I was going to have in book 2, the more and more just kind of kept getting added on, kept getting added on. Like I got to split it down the middle into 2 different books. And I feel like that was probably a good decision because tonally, book 2 and book 3 are going to be very different. I mean, they're going to have some similarities, just like how book 1 to book 2 will. But each of them has its own sort of tone that's going to be set. And so
Nice.
I'm kind of glad I made that decision.
Okay, so you're not doing a thing where like book 2 is Tyrus and book 3 is Orin.
I didn't say that.
Oh, did you split them up?
So book 1. Well, obviously there's 2 protagonists, 2 POVs. Book 2, I guess I could say it here. Sure, why not? Book 2 is going to be more Orin centric in the same way that book 1 was more Tyrus centric. That doesn't mean that Tyrus won't show up. So
Okay. Now, okay. Did part of that come from people's reaction to Orin?
No, actually, that was one of the other surprising things that we were talking about earlier about surprises. I was surprised how much people really, really loved Orin as a character.
I can't figure it out. Now, I refuse. There's nothing bad about Tyrus, but he's got more of a standard. Him and Serana, kind of, I don't want to say standard, but a more familiar idea with him. And I don't know what it is about Orin, but I keep finding myself drawn back to him.
Yeah, I know it's the weirdest thing, and I kind of I had to just when you write the POVs, and I don't know if it's true the same if the same thing is true with your process because I know that you have that single POV with Jack, but writing both the POVs is kind of almost like you're just in a different mood when you're writing both of them. And I don't know what Orin's mood is, but whatever that kind of wavelength is seems to jive with people. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting though. But to answer your question though, no, I did not. Oh, yes. We know you loved Yada Zin. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people like Yada too.
She is just
killer. I loved writing her. She was what probably Zen. She was probably one of my favorite characters to write, if we're being honest. And where was I at? I was
when you're with Orin and you.
Feel yes. Yeah. So to answer your question though, I didn't take that into consideration because I had already had kind of the skeleton of 2, 3, and 4 planned out in terms of POV and stuff like that ahead of time. So people liking Orin just kind of made me think, oh well, you're gonna like book 2 then if you like Orin as kind of being the focal point. So
you will be satisfied with this. So for those of you who don't know, when Troy, actually, I'm not going to do it. Troy, would you like to explain how this idea became a book?
Sure, Andy, I'd love to. So, I had always liked telling stories. I had always liked to be the person that would come up with, the magical worlds, the fantasy worlds. My cousin always used to laugh at me because as a kid, I would just draw fantasy maps randomly for fun. And so me and my friends, we love playing video games. We love all things, nerdy, as you would call it. And so we wanted to try our hands one day at Dungeons and Dragons. I had two friends who were really, really into it. They'd made like 10 different characters. They were ready for their first character to die just so they can do their second character and third character, fourth character. So they were really into it. And a couple, friends that were, had passing interest in it. So we all got together, and quickly I decided I want to be the dungeon master because that's the person who gets to create the story, who gets to narrate, if you will. And something about that. Yes, and make the maps. That was a big thing. The map you see behind you, I actually made, and I believe the software was called Wonder Draft, and I made it for our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So I had to create kind of a backbone of like lore and story for the world for us to travel through because we wanted to do that. I didn't want to do the pre-made stuff. I wanted to build my own thing. So that's what I did. And then we did about, how many sessions? I would say like 3 sessions, maybe 2.5 sessions. And that was it. So we were done. And so I put all this work, like hours and hours of work. Like this map took like probably like a week to make, like, just 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, shading, doing all this different stuff. Not to mention all the different like lore I'd made for all the cities, backstories and stuff. And, I just had all of that. And I'm like, well, I need to use this for something. It'd be just a horrible waste. And I'd always wanted to, like I said, tell stories and stuff like that. And so I thought that, maybe I could try my hand at writing. And of course, in the beginning, it was horrible. It was absolutely terrible. I was never the best in English class or pronunciation. I was not a big avid reader as a kid. That's something that I've really just grown to love in these past few years here. But I've just grown so much. I had a coworker whose sister had a master's degree in creative writing. Right. So I got with her, and we just got my writing kind of up to snuff a little bit. She also works as a freelance editor. She's my editor. Thank you, Adi, for everything you do. You're amazing. If she's ever watched this, but yeah. So after that, that's when I really started to grow as a writer, and my writing really started to take form. And then I wrote book
I
one.
think that's well, at the end of the day, you learned the most important thing about D&D, which is a campaign usually lasts about 3 games before people stop showing up.
Yeah, that's the universal truth.
It absolutely is. I don't know why, but it's just like you got to replace party members pretty readily after the thing starts. And then eventually you find 5 people that show up every time, but it's tough to do.
And at first I thought it was just like the showing up aspect, but we even tried playing like online, like on Fantasy Grounds, messed around with D&D Beyond a little bit. And it's just, I don't know what it was, but the commit for people, like, maybe crazy schedules, but yeah, it was never did last.
As it turns out, people are flakes.
Yeah.
There's just no getting around it. So I'm going to flip the way I wanted to ask about this. Since we're there, when you were building this world, where did the sovereigns come from? Because it's a really interesting idea that I also have never seen before.
Yes. So I didn't want to just do like kings of this or, emperor of this, but I wanted to have something at least a little bit unique for the leaders of this, overpowering, like continent spanning empire that was going to be such a huge part of my series. And so I thought that instead of having one, ruler, we could have an oligarchy of maybe 10 different ones that each oversaw like a different aspect of society, almost like a republic where you don't get to elect the representatives. If that makes sense. And then I didn't want them to just be regular people. I want them to be larger than life. And there's a lot of other lore that goes into that I don't really want to divulge. That I'm going to just sort of give you guys pieces of throughout the books to figure out who or what, or even the origin story of the sovereigns, how they came to power and stuff like that. But that is the idea behind it. I initially kind of wanted the sovereigns to be behind the scenes and have like an emperor of the empire, because most empires have an emperor.
They do.
And he was just going to be like a puppet figurehead. But then I just thought, why even have that? I just cut that off, and then let's have the sovereigns be out there. Let's have them be prominent figures in the story. And so that's kind of where I ended up with that.
So you didn't lift those from anywhere or adapt something that already existed, they just kind of came wholly formed?
So the one thing that I really got stuck on me as far as their appearance was, I never saw the movie, but I did see trailers for it. Do you remember? It was probably 6 or 7, no, maybe not that long ago. Maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, the movie Gods of Egypt. Remember that? And they all
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and they were all supposed to be different gods of Egypt, and Egyptian gods, often portrayed with the animalistic features,
Yeah.
usually in the face, and it almost looked like they were wearing like suits of armor with like a different animal like face shaped thing. And so I thought that that was just such a cool aesthetic, and so that's what I kind of wanted to like picture when I was writing the song. Just this kind of almost like representative of what their kind of realm of government is. Like Lunaris is over. He's the sovereign of wisdom. So
Yep.
a lot of times people associate wisdom with owls, and so I was going to have him have an owl mask. And Aquilon, who is kind of like the head honcho that oversees the government, all the bureaucracy and stuff. We're going to have him be an eagle, because eagles, Romans, the U.S. is often a symbol of like empire, and that's kind of where those sort of formed from. If that makes sense. I never saw the movie, so it's kind of fun. Heard it wasn't yeah, I heard it wasn't the best movie ever, but maybe I'll give it a watch sometime, just for the sake of it, right?
I think you got everything you needed out of it. The other thing that I thought was interesting is usually when you got figures like this, they usually kind of take on some representation of the natural world, and you went the other way. You kind of went their representations of human constructs, really.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely fair to say. That's exactly what I thought, because when I was kind of constructing the empire, I'm like, well, the empires are huge. They require a lot of managing. So who's going to manage all of these imperial kind of systems? Like you have, people who are doctors or healers, I guess in a sense. And then you have people who oversee like the bank and stuff like that. And those people hold a lot of power. And so having these, big figureheads to represent them, I just thought was a very like kind of interesting idea. And so having that coupled with sort of like their animalistic features kind of as an antithesis to the kind of human nature of what they represent, I just thought was kind of a fun dynamic to play around.
Right. Okay, so if the whole thing was spawned out of a D&D campaign, are Tyrus and Orin like players in the game originally, or were these people that you created?
So Tyrus and Orin were originally not in the D&D campaign. There were just, unnamed seekers. There were other characters, and there's some characters in book 2 that were actually in the D&D campaign.
Oh, I love
that. Zin will like this story. So one of the characters that the players in my actual first encounter actually did meet in a tavern was Yada. One of the players actually got knocked unconscious. That was kind of a fun thing to see.
So where did Tyrus come from?
So Tyrus and Orin, they're sort
of...
No.
I want to know where Tyrus came from.
As a character?
Yeah.
You could say he's a little bit of a self-insert, but just some aspects of kind of my character. The thing about Tyrus is it's hard to talk about Tyrus without talking about Orin, because I do see them so much as sort of reflections of each other.
Okay,
the way
we'll only do it for 15 seconds.
Oh, just about Tyrus?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess some of the traits that I like to see in characters in my protagonists, and some that I maybe see in myself, or maybe some of the better traits, and also some of the not so good traits. Like, I'm a person that gets anxious really easy, and so I wanted to dial that up to 11 for him. Like, a lot of him is his anxiety and just kind of trying to always be the best because he feels like it's expected of him. And at the same time, having a little bit of fun with it. He's very, very sarcastic. Just those kind of traits I thought were interesting, and that I liked, that I've maybe seen, a variety of other characters just throughout all different kind of media that I've seen.
So let me let you off the hook for Tyrus, and we'll flip over to Orin.
Oren, I wanted to be like Tyrus, but a little bit more unsure of himself, a little bit more grounded, and but at the same time, he's still gone through the same training that Tyrus has, and so I always like that kind of. It's almost like the classic like Lancer kind of personality. You have your protagonist, and then you have the Lancer, which is like the side character. But I wanted to elevate him more than just like the main side character into another protagonist. I want to learn more about Orin, kind of flesh his character out a bit more. And he's more of a younger brother to Tyrus's older brother, but also kind of embodies it's a little bit of a self-insert too in terms of like some of my personalities and some of the other sort of traits that I didn't, pour myself into with Tyrus. And the reason Oren's eyes are gray and the reason Tyrus's eyes are blue is because sometimes in certain lights my eyes look blue and sometimes in certain lights my eyes look gray. And that's really why their eyes are blue and gray.
And ladies and gentlemen, the most gorgeous eyes in show business right there. I mean, there's just no getting around it.
Thank you, Andy.
And how did you not win? Didn't you have like a best eyes contest in high school?
Oh yeah, I told you that.
Win?
I did not. Yeah. The person who won, his name is Kevin. He has some pretty eyes too. He had some very, very pretty eyes.
Kevin. So one of the things that I got to say that I really liked about Oren was that younger brother thing, where he's kind of looking up and he feels like he's not as good, and that kind of self-deprecation that went along with him, where it's just like, I'm not sure if I'm as good as Tyrus, but maybe I should be, and maybe I deserve to be. Kind of felt really cool, but at the same time, there was no like jealousy or weirdness going on in their relationship. They had a healthy friendship. Mm-hmm. What was it like writing that? Because it's rare for me to find a book that talks about friendship where the friendship is actually healthy.
Yeah.
And they actually like each other. And then you split them apart and say, nope, you're not going to be able to be together. And you've got some, where they reference each other, but they're not together the entire story. So what was it like to write that friendship aspect of it?
I drew upon a lot of personal experience again. I have a cousin that's basically a brother to me. I grew up with him. We would see each other every weekend. We would hang out a bunch. He lived with me for a little bit of a time. And he was my younger cousin, but in the same kind of dynamic, he was always the one that was a little bit better at sports, a little bit better at this, a little bit better at that. And I was kind of always the one that was a little bit, on catch-up duty. But in some aspects and other aspects, I was, way better than he was. And so we kind of shared kind of a little bit of both sides of that dynamic of Tyrus and Oren, but we always had a healthy relationship, even though sometimes, we were a little bit jealous of each other. Or we would say things that would, get the other one angry. Like we always came back to we're really, really good friends. He's still my best friend. And I was the best man at his wedding. So, which just happened back in March. So yeah, I drew a lot upon personal experience when I was writing that friendship. And then when they were apart, a lot of it was just thinking, man, how would I feel personally? Or how would I think that my cousin would feel in that instance, And so I didn't want to, write an unhealthy friendship, but I didn't want to write a perfectly clean friendship. And I don't think that theirs is perfectly clean. There's obviously a little bit of jealousy and a little bit of Tyrus feeling like he has to take care of Oren. Oren is like his responsibility. And so I liked writing just a touch of that in there with it. But yeah, splitting them up was probably the best decision, I think.
Well, what I really liked about they're apart, they're together, they're apart. Mm-hmm. And they each get to come into their own as a character. And yet at the same time, that time that they're together helps ground me for the rest of the story for when they're split up, because I still continue to think of them in reference to each other. And I just think it's a brilliant device that you used at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Act 1, I guess.
Yeah.
So Serana, where did she come from? Was she based on anything?
She is. Oh, it's hard to say. So she started off as not, I guess, as nuanced as she is in the final act. She was more of just she didn't actually start off as Tyrus's love interest. If we're being honest, she was more of just a secondary character. And the more that I thought about her, the more I wanted her to play a more prominent role in the story. And I just kind of twisted her character along and thought that she would really be this very very strong princess, because it would make sense for her to be, right. She's the daughter of basically the general of the Katerran military, very very
No messing
strong
around
armed
going on with
person.
Sora.
Yeah, and her mother as well, very very strong character. So I kind of just sort of played around with the idea of it a lot, and then obviously she has the more sentimental side, that she cultivates, just being just in the environment and stuff like that. But I don't think that there's like one specific character. Like I say, it's always like taking certain pieces from different media, different characters that you see, like just as you experience it, like stuff that really, like, I guess, sticks with you. And I like
Mhm.
that sort of strong, but also caring, aspect in like she's almost like the female lead of Tyrus's story. She's as important to Tyrus's arc as he is. I would say takes
Yeah,
on that much
absolutely.
role. Yeah. So
Okay,
that's kind of where she started.
so what was it like? Okay, so when you started the story, she was a character and she kind of came into her own during the course of the story.
Mhm.
When you introduced romance into the story, how did that go? Was that easy? Was it hard? Was it bumpy? Did it come so naturally? It was like spreading butter on bread. What was that like?
It was very hard. It was very, very challenging. And I was just the entire time like mortified that it was going to come across as a little too cheesy or a little too forced or just too sudden. And so I wanted it to build, but I didn't want it to be something that is wholly apparent from the beginning. And so I just wanted to sort of like intersperse like little bits of it throughout the beginning and sort of build it up until a more natural progression. And the way that I did it, I thought that it would work, but I didn't. I just still wasn't sure. And even up until the point of release, I'm like, man, are people gonna hate this romance? Are they gonna love it? Is kind of hard to say. But writing it, I just I wanted to think of at that age, they're both really like in the later stages of being teens. How would they feel in terms of a romance? Like, it's obviously not a super mature romance, but it's not a 14-year-old romance either. It's something a little bit more mature, but not quite an adult romance. So trying to kind of put myself there and like get those emotions right is it was something that like terrified me the entire time through, Andy. But
I don't blame you because it
yeah.
seems terrifying to try and jump off that cliff with the assumption that you're going to somehow get it right. But you threaded the needle on that relationship so well, where one of the things that always bugs me about romance is when it lacks a sense of humor. And the fact that you're infused humor throughout the story remains steadfast throughout the relationship, I just loved.
Yeah, and I thought too, I always draw back to personal experience or just what I see in everyday life. And people like to be funny. Even if people aren't that funny, they like to make jokes and they like to, just sort of play upon that aspect. It's one of the principal things we do as people. We always like to joke around, laugh. It's not all serious, lovey-dovey Romeo and Juliet style romance. Although there's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted it to just feel a little bit more grounded, I guess, and normal everyday.
Yeah, I feel like you did a great job hitting that note, not just once, but over and over again throughout the course of the story, where you grew to not just care about them, but to care about their relationship. And I think that's a very difficult thing to do. I think you should be really proud of doing it as well as you did.
Thank you.
And while I'm on the subject, I want to go to Yada in a second, but I also want to ask you, okay, is this book YA?
It's YA in the sense that of the characters' ages and a lot of the themes, like the romance themes. like sort of coming of age themes. So there are a lot of themes in there that would make someone who picks it up think that it's a YA, but you
Mhm.
could totally pick it up. And if you're looking at it with a certain lens or just with a certain kind of viewpoint, you could say that it's just regular epic fantasy. Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, he says it read to him just as a regular epic fantasy. But then when I initially sent the draft to my editor, she's like, "Oh no, this is totally a YA." So I think it's
Mhm.
more of a perspective thing.
Right?
For me, I kind of wrote it with no presupposition, if that makes sense. I didn't really know what kind of book I wanted to write, and I sort of wanted to see where it would land after writing it. And so I market it sort of as a YA epic fantasy, sort of maybe like a hybridization of it, with a very, very heavy like adventure theme, because
Oh
Indiana
yeah.
Jones is one of like my favorite action series of all time. You know, I love that blend of just kind of levity with, you know, a lot of seriousness and a lot of just thrilling like action and adventure, like the more mysterious, arcane, um, like ancient artifacts are always just all that. I love ancient artifacts. I don't know what it is. That kind
One
that just hits everything right for me.
one of the things that you were saying when we were talking earlier is that is combination of Indiana Jones and like a spy movie. It's like you get secret agents that are assigned to go out and track this down and get the MacGuffin and bring it back, and it's just like that blend worked really well. The
Mm-hmm.
the other thing, while we're on the subject, I just need to say that Leo and Aries, I brought it just brought it every single time they would show. I mean, I guess they kind of showed up and came to the rescue at the beginning, and then they're with the group the rest of the time, but those characters were great.
I loved writing those. Those are probably my favorite characters to write, besides Yada and maybe a cup and maybe Squall. Squall might be number one, and then Yada, Leo, and Aries probably in that order is in terms of favorite characters to write. Leo and Aries, I drew a lot from like the more kind of like bickering like aspects of me and my cousin, but then
Right.
also just a lot of the tropiness and kind of stuff that I like to see out of that dynamic of the bigger and the younger brother, who couldn't be more different, but still have that kind of familial bond that keeps them together. Like I love that so much, and I see that in a story. So I wanted to bring that into mine.
Well, and the relationship is a lot of striking off of each other as opposed to
Yes,
necessarily working together.
yes, yeah. I wanted for them to have that kind of I don't know if you would call it um, what is the word,
Marzipan.
continuity together, or yeah, just kind of that being able to sort of play off each other, not necessarily seeing eye to eye or working together, but just one says one thing, the other one says the other thing, and they just kind of go back and forth, or just one
Right.
after the other. Yeah,
You take a position, I will take the opposite position because you took that
exactly. Yeah.
position. And yet, the thing about that relationship is it can always get super boring because it's just that, right? You already know what the conversation is going to be before it ever starts, and you never got there. You kept both of them fresh and lively and entertaining and energetic throughout, and I just really love what they brought to the story.
Oh, thank you.
Was there? Dom, when he did his review, talked about how the names bugged him. I could not figure that out at all. I understand that they're more kind of Greek or Roman. I can't remember. Leo and Aries. Aries is going to be what, Roman. But I, that didn't bother me at all. I didn't feel like it didn't match with anything else that was going on in the story. I don't know. I just bought into both of them immediately.
It was a so their naming convention and their entire family is actually based on constellations.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Leo, Aries, and the Andromeda is the only one that isn't. She's more of like the Andromeda Galaxy. Yes, and fantasy names are always weird indeed. Yeah, but I understood. Yeah, like that's not everybody's cup of tea. And I've actually when I was in the beta read phase, someone else had made that point on a different set of characters who actually changed the name of, because they were straight pulled out of mythology, and that's Hagen and Majin, the archons at the end. I
Oh yeah,
changed them.
yeah. Okay.
They were initially Hunan and Munin, like the
Okay.
Ravens. Yeah. So I kind of played around with those names, changed them a little bit just because that was brought up to me. But I can understand. Yeah, not everybody's cup of tea.
No,
That's where the Asteris Asteris means of the stars. That's where that naming convention came.
Nice. Yeah, I just thought the two of them brought so much to the table. It's not even funny. Okay, so let's go to Yada.
Yes.
What the hell? Now, was she pulled because you are a big Avatar: Last Airbender, Dragon Ball Z guy?
I love anime. I'm not ashamed.
So did you take any aspects from a couple of different characters to build her? Because as far as assassins go, she's pretty freaking interesting.
Yes. So I wanted her to be somewhat of a female version of one of my favorite characters in anime, and that's Guts from the anime manga Berserk. I wanted her to be just this ultimate badass. And so that's kind of what she blossomed into. And, she obviously has like a lot of other influences. She has a little bit of Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and just that but so does Andromeda. But she's kind of pulled from a couple aspects from different characters, but definitely want to be that female version of Guts, just this ultimate just badass character who has to kind of hide their heart a little bit just because of all the just horrible things that happen to them that I may go into in like a novella at some point. She's one that I definitely want to write like some kind of standalone story about.
Oh, I think everybody would enjoy that adventure. I think that'd be great. So what was it like sparking her off of Orin? Because you've got kind of an analog of you and your relationship with your cousin combined with this kind of three different anime characters combined together. How did that go?
So as far as her dynamic with Orin is very unsure of himself with Tyrus. But that's one of his like pet peeves. He doesn't like that he's unsure of himself. And in the beginning of the story, we find him. He's kind of worried about where his life is going. He feels like he's sort of just being strung along. And here comes Yada, this person who just is overflowing with self-confidence, total badass. And so he kind of feels like he has to peacock a little bit and sort of kind of, she just, her identity sort of annoys him as a character. So that's why they are often bickering. He also is a little bit resentful of her just from, all of the stuff that happens early on. And so that's where their dynamic started. But then as the story progresses, they sort of start to see a little bit more eye to eye, the more time they spend together, and they start to respect each other for who they really are, not who they're kind of fronting to be, in a sense.
I feel like you did a great job of finding a counterpoint to both of your main characters that worked really well for those characters. And I just need to applaud you for that, because I felt like you found the harmony to each one of their melody. And it was like the exact right fit. It was like lock and key. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you.
Joe, yeah. Emil, I gotta tell you, Emil's emotional journey, his conflict that goes along with him, and the line about what is viewed as illegal in one culture is viewed as commonplace in another. I can't remember what the exact line is, but that was the moment you got me. I was like, okay, I am totally into this guy. I am totally into what Troy's writing. I'm totally into this story. Just tell me a little bit about that character in general, because it's so layered and nuanced. It didn't feel like you were forcing anything. It was great.
Emil is another character where he started off in my initial, it was actually funny. So in the very early stages, Emil was going to be sort of the pseudo love triangle person that Tyrus kind of thinks that Serana has fallen for, that they're with. So there was going to just be sort of a rivalry there. And I kind of just wanted to flip that whole thing on its head. And I didn't like the idea after thinking about it for a while. And so he just kind of reverted back to just Serana's bodyguard, end of story. But then the more I kind of chewed on it, and in the very, very early chapters, you can kind of see it. So in the early chapters, he's not given a lot of characterization, because that's when I'm still kind of figuring out his character. And as the chapters go on, I just thinking more and more about this guy, and just what he might be, what he might think, how he might feel, just trying to like kind of flesh out his life story. And that's when I feel like he really came to life for me.
Yeah.
And just being able to sort of build him up and, give some nuance to his character, think about what, he might have went through, and just kind of tell his story. Like that was one of like the, I guess, most eye-opening things for me, because he was one character that just started as just a very, very, very generic side character that didn't have many lines or anything. It was more just a named, kind of NPC, if you will.
Yeah.
And then he really blossomed into what I thought was one of my more favorite characters to write. And I really loved writing him because, he's also seen, if we're talking tropes, he's the big, he's like the big, broad, like, kind of strong man.
He's the tank.
Yeah, he's the tank. And because Ares was that to the other group, I loved their little dynamic. I wanted to make sure I got that right when the groups met up towards the end. And so that was another thing that I really enjoyed writing as well.
Well, and I love this. I hate to use the term obvious subtlety, but I love the way that you addressed what his conflict was and how you didn't whack me over the head with it. It didn't feel like an agenda, and it felt perfectly natural to what the story was. And I just loved it. And it gave such a depth to his character. I just loved it. Sorry.
No, you're good. So that whole aspect of his character was something that I just wanted to write as naturally as possible. I didn't want to make it in your face, but at the same time, like, I wanted to tell it as if it, someone you met on the street, just an everyday person, and, kind of introduce him that way and sort of build on it from there. And so that's why I was really, really meticulous about making his character feel very natural.
I think you pulled it off beautifully. He's got to be one of my favorite in the group. But everybody else's favorite of the entire group is Squall.
Is that true? I haven't heard that before. That surprised me a lot. Honestly, if we're talking about surprises, I knew people were going to like Squall. I did not know that he was going to be most people's favorite character. Like that kind of took me aback a little bit.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, man. You basically have Mad Bomber.
Yeah.
Who's on your side.
I know. Yeah, that's the key parties on your side.
Yeah, that's the important thing. And what I also loved was the fact that you took a mentor trope and flipped it, and it's not just the drunk mentor; it goes beyond that. And how did you weave him together?
So one of my favorite mentors done just in any kind of storytelling is the mentorship. Are you familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender at all? Have you watched it?
Familiar with what?
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I'm aware that there's a movie that no one would watch.
Well, the M. Night Shyamalan one.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. No, but the cartoon never really came into my experience. Like, I was aware that people watched it, but it was like Magic the Gathering. It just was never a thing that I dipped a toe in.
In that series, there is a mentor to the primary antagonist of the first season who continues to be an antagonist through the rest of the seasons. And they're, kind of hot-headed, teenager to wise, old, caring mentor. That dynamic worked so well. And it's like, if you talk to fans of the series, it's one of their favorite aspects, that dynamic. And so that's what I pulled from for Squall and Tyrus, is I wanted it to feel similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want it to be just that, because, that's been done before. So what can I do to make him a little bit more interesting? Well, maybe instead of just being a wise old mentor, maybe he can, be an explosives expert with a big freaking cannon and a wagon that he hauls it around in. That
right.
Has, little, conspicuous hiding areas that may not always just be used to hide people in his earlier life. And, making him a drunk seemed just natural. What goes with explosives like alcohol, Andy, so. That's when his character really took shape, and I just kind of ran with
TNT. That's what life is made of. So you were surprised when people reacted to Squall the way they did?
I loved writing Squall. He was by far, I loved writing his lines, and the sarcastic banter between him and Tyrus were my favorite, like one of my favorite things to write in an entire story. But I did not think, like, I knew that they would like him, but the depth of how much people like him, like as, oh, Squall is my favorite character, he is so great. I never saw that coming. That blindsided me, and I, you know, it's one of the my proudest moments of being able to, you know, write someone that people like so much, you know. So that was yeah.
I feel like it was, I don't know if you read the book, but Rory August has a book called Last Gifts of the Universe. And everybody fell in love with Pumpkin, who was a character in the story. And I really feel like it was the same thing. It was just, there was something about Squall that was like this standout gonzo, you know, Crazy Harry from the Muppets. Coming along with his plunger and going, okay, let's blow it all up. He was just so much fun every time he was on screen, on page. It was impossible not to, oh dear Lord, here we go. Daniel's got some extra names for you. You need to use that in the next one?
Yeah. Man, that is a hangman killer right there. If you
yeah, nobody's going to guess that one. And pronouncing it to begin with is extremely tough. So, the brothers. Okay, so I need to talk about. Oh, at this point, I need to do spoiler alert. Okay,
yes,
if you haven't read the book, don't watch this part. Mobius, Afangu, because I may be the only person in the universe who did not have any. I was like, why is he so mean? He's so mean to Mobius. Tyrus is just, you know, I like Tyrus except for the way he is with Mobius. And then you come along just like, oh, you took me completely by surprise with that one.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, he was meant to be the person that, why are you being so mean to him? All he's trying to do is help, and then just, yeah, flip that right on its head. He's, you know, the person that always, you know, just held his resentment inside until he could just unleash it all at once.
Because I'm reading the book and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, you completely have me the entire time. I'm like, yeah, Mobius, come on, man, give Mobius a chance. Everything's cool. Oh no. And that betrayal scene, what was it like to write that betrayal scene?
I didn't want it to come across as too, like, I guess not tropey, but just overdone. Like, I didn't want it to just seem like, okay, yeah, we know what's coming, it's going to be this. And I feel like ultimately it might still be a little bit that, because some people I've noticed them like, yep, as soon as like he started pouring drinks, we knew it was up. And so, but in the sense that I sort of also leaned into it a little bit, because part of me like wanted people to know that, like, now we're getting into the last part of the book and, oh no, something bad is about to happen. So I was trying to kind of tread that line.
Yeah.
I was kind of trying to tread that line without it like tipping one way or the other way, like too much. And so that's why I kind of wrote it sort of starting as talking about something completely else, like when Thrawn and Tyrus have that moment of just wondering like, oh man, what's going to happen now? And then worrying about the little girl that they saved from, you know, the prison, and then going into just, okay, yeah, now all of you guys are poisoned and knocked out, and you're going to get fed to this horrible monster.
Now. The stuff that I want to happen is going to happen now, which is basically you being completely crippled for now. I just thought that worked really well, and I didn't see it coming at all. I feel like other people, it's like watching The Sixth Sense. It's like, oh, I knew it the entire time. No, you didn't. You just made it up. You're pretending that you knew it the entire time. Yeah, it completely caught me off guard. I was like, I was not looking for it at all. I was looking for external threats left, right, and center. We have our merry band. We're on our way. Okay, you got one character who's not as popular as the other ones. Oops. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, and I got to be completely honest with you, the first 3 times I read it, it was the Giuliani. So I just imagined a guy with a bad comb over and a little bit of hair dye leaking down the side of his face while he's doing a very stressful press conference outside of a furniture store. But where did you get the, not Giuliani, Guglani? Was that right?
Oh, the Guglani or the Googlani and whatever. Yeah. The naming convention doesn't really matter. Yeah, Googlani or Googlani.
Googlani.
Yeah. The name I kind of.
Which way is it?
whatever way people want it. I like to think that in universe, people say it wrong because they don't know, because not everybody, travels way down into the deep trenches. Like nobody
Right.
knows about those things besides the criminals that inhabit there. So, we'll say that officially it's Google and I, but if people say Googlani, it's fine by me.
Google and I.
Either way, it's not the easiest thing to say. But yeah, those horrible worm things.
Yeah.
The naming convention for them is actually Googleana, which was the bull of heaven in Sumerian mythology that they sent because they were mad at Gilgamesh, wanted to, knock him off his high horse. And I kind of wanted the name to be a subtle nod to, oh, these things were made by the gods. Or since there's no gods mentioned, who could have made them? Oh, wait, it's big spoilers. The sovereigns made them. So what are they hiding? Who knows? We'll have to read the rest of the books to find out. But those worm things, yeah, I hate worms. I hate any creepy crawlies, Andy. Spiders, bugs, worms. I'll tell you this. One of the scenes that terrified me, like I want to say as a little kid, but I'm ashamed to admit I was not quite a little kid. I think I was like 12 or 13 when I saw this. But the King Kong movie, Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about already.
I've watched
Oh my God.
So many times.
That scene where they're in that crevice with those worms and then the spider and everything. That, oh man, I had to walk out of the theater, Andy. Like I could not deal with that.
Well, and I got to say, while we're talking about it, one of the best things about that scene is it's done in complete silence. There's no
the silence
soundtrack.
is horrible. That makes it so much more terrifying. And so that kind of silent wriggling, just horrible, almost otherworldly kind of aspect is what I really drew upon when I was writing those. I wanted them to be disgusting, just little bits of like pus dripping out of them, the skin being wriggly and kind of moist, that just horrible, like, oh man, that is exactly what I kind of wanted to hit the nail on the head of with the Google.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was great monster. Because with monsters, it's really tough to come up with something new. Right, you've seen all your standard stuff, left, right, and center, and most things kind of wind up being variations on the theme. But you kind of took me someplace I hadn't, and genuinely freaked me out. So I'm glad you were thinking about Peter Jackson while you were doing that. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that is to this day, like if we're talking about creatures that just terrify me. Like give me all of your dragons and Godzillas and every other big crazy looking monster. Those things scare the living hell out of me.
It's the little ones. It's the little ones that are going to get you. The swarm, any kind of swarm will give me the heebie-jeebs.
And then I couldn't decide if I wanted a swarm or if I wanted a big one, so I just did both. That's why there's two.
Right? I got a bunch of little ones, and then I got a monster.
Yes.
So I know you need to go to your father-in-law's birthday party, but I did want to check. You had said earlier that your depth and breadth of the fantasy genre was you had a light skimming but not a ton. What are you reading recently that's hit with you?
So I've been very, very fortunate in the last few events that I've participated in, different readathons, that I've been able to read just a lot of indie and just see kind of where that's going. And then a little bit of traditional publishing that's gone with that. I've read stuff by Andrew Meredith, his book Thrice. I've read...
shout out to Andrew Meredith. Sorry, shout out to Andrew for
narrating.
For the narration.
Yeah, he did an excellent job narrating the audiobook for Seekers. And we became friends after I had read his book Thrice. And then, yeah, such a good decision by me to have him narrate my audiobook. It was great. Yeah. I've read stuff. I've just read all sorts of different authors. I wish I had a list in front of me, but just so many other ones. I've read your amazing book, The Legend of Blackjack. That one, that took me back to Treasure Island and just all those other just kind of adventure. It really, really made me feel like never-ending story. You just never knew what was going to come next, and it was just this coming of age adventure. That was just, that was great. And so
is there stuff that you're looking forward to reading as well? Do you have of the big traditional? Hey, you got to read this fantasy books? Is like they're the next one on the list?
So I have the first 4 books of Wheel of Time. I
Oh,
don't know when I'm gonna get to them though.
oh,
Just yeah. I eventually want to read the entire series, but I have told myself that I'm going to read The Wars of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz first, because I read Curse of the Mistwraith. That was like my first traditionally published book that I read in a really long time.
yeah.
And the prose in that is just like, it's palpable. It's so poetic and flows so well. It's not my usual cup of tea, because I like stuff that reads fast and easy. You know, you can tell by the way that I wrote mine. It's very, very easy to read, it's very fast, but hers is just so much in the other direction, but in just the best of ways. So just like descriptive, evocative. It's almost like you can touch them. And then it reads almost like, hey, you're talking about Robert Frost earlier before we started the stream. It reads like just like a poem almost, the different lines. I've reread a few of the lines, not because I didn't understand them, but just because I just wanted to hear that. I wanted to speak it and, and just kind of just savor it for a while. So I'm gonna read the Wars of Light and Shadow until it's wherever she's. I don't think it's quite in. I think she still has the last book to go. Not 100% sure on that, but I'm gonna read. I have like the next 4 or 5 in the series for her, and then Wheel of Time probably after that. And I'm gonna try to get as many indies. I have such a large list of indies. It just keeps getting longer the more wonderful people that I meet and reviews I see by all the content creators.
The last thing I want to ask you about, I can't believe that I didn't ask you about this already. What has your experience with Spiffbo been like so far?
Well, a lot of nerves and a lot of just kind of waiting, just waiting to see. You mentioned Dom's review, so I'm in his allocation, so I saw his review of my book. I've been, kind of watching his reviews of some of the other books, and just kind of whenever I see something, I haven't had a whole lot of time to really like just look at all of the reviews from all the different teams and stuff like that, just because of how hectic work has been. But hopefully now that I'm getting more settled into my job, I can kind of keep more up to date with the news and stuff like that, just to see what's going on. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really honestly looked at it much, other than like kind of in the beginning when we all found out our allocations, and just kind of waiting for the reviews.
It's just like 1 of 300. Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's going to be a fun journey, and good luck to you and Legend of Blackjack as well.
Oh, good luck to all of us, because here's the thing. It doesn't really, you want your book to move forward and you want to be a semifinalist and all that stuff. But the thing about it is that they always wind up with like 8 books at the top that are all good. And to me, that's one of the best things, is like, okay, what did they pick? Okay, now I want to read that. And you get a couple of months to go through. And I'm not going to read all 8, but, there's always a couple I'm going to pick out and go, oh, yeah, what's this? So, to me, it's less about, where do I wind up in the pile, or where do you wind up in the pile? It's what are those pieces that come out of the end, and what's the reaction to those? And okay, now I know a couple of books I get to read because they've been recommended pretty significantly by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I will shut up and get out of your way and let you go to your birthday party, because you got a long drive in front of you.
Yeah, hopefully not too long. We'll see. I haven't checked traffic yet. We'll see.
Cross fingers on the 90. But thank you, Troy, so much. I appreciate you 1,000,000%, and thank you for writing a banger of a book. And as a reminder, Seekers, the Winds of Change is on sale right now. If you are watching this, you need to go and buy it right now, wherever books are sold, which is on your computer at Amazon.
Low price of free. Thank you so much for having me on, Andy. I really appreciate you. I loved your book, Legend of Blackjack, and I'm so happy that you enjoyed mine as well. I appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun talking to you, and just thank you. This is such a nice conversation.
I love spending time with you. All right, folks, we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you all so much.
Take care. Thank you for coming.